Hello, everyone, and welcome to Somewhat Scholarly. My name is Alan Hibbard, and today I want to talk about the top 10 reasons I don't invest in XRP. And I've been putting off this video for a very long time because I know that most of my subscribers, most of my viewers are huge fans of XRP. And that's actually the reason why I didn't make this video for 2 months. But I have to be honest with myself. I have to be honest with my viewers. So now's the time. So actually, I was inspired to make this video. What really was the catalyst was a comment I got on a Quora article, Quora post that I wrote. Here it is. Iap Chetin commented on my answer to how many cryptocurrencies should you hold in a portfolio, and is it possible that you can have too many? My answer was definitely yes, but I'll let you guys read that article. I'll link to it in the show notes. Anyways, the comment was this. Hi, Alan. Thank you for the post. Can I ask you a few questions if you don't mind? I watched the video about XRP on your YouTube channel. I got the impression that you were agreeing with Matt Hamilton's arguments, but I don't see XRP in your portfolio. By the way, I did include a screenshot of my entire portfolio, what I'm holding, cryptocurrencies and otherwise. So if you want to see the exact breakdown, again, go check out this Quora article. Anyways, any reason for that? Any reason you don't have XRP in your portfolio? What do you think about XRP? Also, how do you buy gold? I know you talk about buying physical gold, not certificates. So how do you buy and store real gold? Okay, awesome. Well, first of all, thank you for the comment. I really appreciate it. I get way more comments than I can answer. But I'll do my best. And I do want to start making more videos. So let me just address gold very quickly. I buy from APMEX, APMEX.com. That's American Precious Metals Exchange. So I have no idea if they ship outside of the United States, but you might want to try goldsilver.com. So that's Mike Maloney's company. I started working with him about 1.5 years ago. I'm just in the habit of buying my gold from a different company, so I do that. But yeah, I definitely don't recommend paper gold or digital gold. So anyways, let's get into XRP and the top 10 reasons that I don't invest in XRP. So I'll count it down from number 10 to number 1, and I think you'll find that I don't actually need 10 reasons. I just included 10 reasons. The number 1 reason I think is strong enough. So you'll see that at the end. So let's get into it. Number 10. Ripple and its products, including XRP, do not solve any of my problems. They solve my bank's problems. So I think that one's kind of self-explanatory. Basically, I don't have a problem, with nostro and vostro accounts. I don't have a problem tying up my capital to do things. I don't have a problem sending money around the world to friends and family. I just don't have those problems. Banks have those problems. So, Ripple and XRP are designed to solve problems of the banks, not my problems. And as I think about what do I want to invest in, I think part of Warren Buffett's advice makes sense here, right? You invest in things you use, right? Because if the investment doesn't pan out, then you can just use the things, or in other words, the process of conversely, I should say, the process of using those things will actually help your own investment. So, if you shop at Walmart, it might make sense to buy stock of Walmart. And conversely, if you shop at Target all the time, you probably don't want to own shares of Walmart. It just doesn't make sense. So, if you're not gonna use Apple products, why would you buy Apple stock? And so on. So, if XRP doesn't really solve my problems, why am I holding it? So that's reason number 10. Number 9. Not every problem is a computer science problem. Success in business or investing is not proportional to success at coding. This is so important, and it does not just apply to XRP. It applies to, even applies to Bitcoin and basically every other crypto I've ever heard people talk about. This is a very, very relevant point, but it also applies to XRP, which is why it's on my list of 10 reasons I don't invest in XRP. The nature of cryptocurrencies, right? The decade that we've had them is such that the pioneers are computer scientists, right? It was a computer science invention, and it's computer scientists who develop it and who advocate it and who talk to each other and sort out the good ideas and the bad ideas and bring it to the masses. So computer scientists have the loudest voice in the space. However, computer scientists and developers, right, they don't know everything about everything, right? Neither do I, okay? However, I see so many instances of computer scientists saying that, because XYZ technology is better than this other one, it's going to be adopted more widely. And that's sort of the argument that's presented. And it's presented in the XRP space. It's presented in the Bitcoin space. It's presented elsewhere. For example, people trying to increase the block size of Bitcoin, or, do like Lightning Network or sharding, or just all these different things, because X is a more recent technology, it's superior, and it will drive adoption. This is ludicrous thinking. I don't care what coin you care about. A computer science problem or a computer science solution is not the be-all, end-all when it comes to investing or adoption or growth or any of these things. So it's just so crazy when people say, this is a better technology, it's Bitcoin 2.0 or whatever they're talking about. Absolute craziness just to use that as a reason, right? There might be things that are adopted more widely than earlier technologies, but things don't become adopted just because they're newer, right? There's something else to it as well. So anyways, when it comes to investing in XRP, I don't buy the argument that this is a better technology, therefore it will be worth more. Just nonsense thinking. Surprisingly, you might surprisingly, I think Brad Garlinghouse knows this, whereas many other people in the crypto space do not. And I think Brad Garlinghouse is a leader, and he knows a lot of things about a lot of different aspects of business. So he knows about marketing, he knows about PR, he knows about legal, he knows about accounting, he knows about all these different things. And he might not be the best computer scientist in the world, but that doesn't matter because he has partnered with them, either hired them or whatever. He's got them on his team. And in contrast to a lot of other coins that only have really good computer scientists, and they don't really have like a marketing team, for example, or they don't have like an education department who can explain what these things are, or blah, 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 blah. A lot of different things. So I actually give Ripple a lot of credit, and I think that a lot of its success in terms of adoption and, market cap, number 3 coin by market cap, all that kind of stuff is attributable not just to having a good technology, but then also marketing, driving partnerships, strategic planning, all these different things, working with regulators, blah, blah, blah. So I think Ripple as a company understands that really well. However, the downside to that is that if Ripple loses Brad Garlinghouse, they've lost their key man, right? Or if they lose David Schwartz, they've lost their other key man, let's say. So that's the nature of any company. It's like if, Tesla loses Elon Musk. I have no idea what would happen, but it would be catastrophic. It's kind of like Apple losing Steve Jobs. Obviously Apple is still around, doing pretty well, but they're not the same company. So that's for sure. So anyways, not every problem is a computer science problem, and it takes a lot more to succeed in business or investing than just that. So number 8, it is extremely difficult to assess the value of the bridge currency space, right? And is unrelated to the total value of remittances themselves. So, XRP is a bridge currency, right? If banks are trying to go from US dollars to British pounds, they could use XRP in between. Pick any two national currencies, and you could use XRP to go between them. But if we're moving, imagine this, like if you and I are two different banks and we're moving $1 billion between us in a particular day, okay, fine. And then imagine the next day it's $100 billion between us. So the volume we're exchanging goes up 100x from one day to the next. Does the value of XRP go up 100x from one day to the next? Obviously not, right? It might be the same price, might go up a little, down a little. It might even be unrelated to the demand. And so, if we're looking at the total volume of money, let's say measured in dollars or measured in some fiat that moves through the system, how is that directly related to the value of the solution that Ripple is providing, right? That either RippleNet or any of the other products are providing. So I don't see the connection. It's difficult. Right? That doesn't mean, obviously, it doesn't mean the solution is worthless. Okay, obviously, it's a valuable solution, right? Banks will pay for it. Banks will use it. Banks will experiment with it. They'll develop something, either their own or they'll use Ripple's products, whatever. Like there is value there, for sure. But the problem I have as an investor is that I have no idea how valuable the solution is. And somewhat disappointingly, somewhat ironically, is that a better and better and better solution, which means faster payments and cheaper payments, means that you're almost getting less revenue for having such a good solution. Like, imagine you're just collecting fees on the transactions, but you're offering a really low-cost solution. You're not making much money anymore. Unless you're charging in a different way. But then if you're charging a lot, like as an annual membership fee or something that banks have to pay you, banks pay Ripple or whatever, some licensing agreement. But if that's really expensive, then you're incentivizing the banks to find a cheaper alternative than you as a company, right? If you're Ripple. You see what I mean? So it's almost a catch-22 that if Ripple is going to offer a really cheap product, whether it's on a transaction fee or cheap licensing fees or just cheapness to the banks overall, if it's going to offer a really cheap product, then it's not going to make much money. And if it's offering an expensive product, which means it would make money, then it opens the door for competitors to come in who offer cheaper alternatives. So, not to mention the fact that I have no idea how to value XRP in under any of those circumstances. It's just really hard to value. So I don't know. It might be overvalued right now. It might be undervalued. It might do 10x. It might drop down to 10% of where it is. I just have no idea. It just seems extremely risky to me because I have no idea how to value this solution. All right, number 7, the currency space and the remittance space is highly competitive. It's hard to pick winners while avoiding losers. So exactly, it's really competitive. In the scenario I just outlined, competitors will come in, try to outcompete with Ripple, or the banks will develop their own solutions. There are hundreds of sovereign fiat currencies that exist, thousands of cryptocurrencies that exist. There could be tens of thousands of currencies of all different types, any day now. I mean, they might already exist, tens of thousands of currencies, and trying to pick the ones that are going to survive the others, it's a really, really, really difficult proposition. And, remember, you're not just, when you're thinking about your portfolio, you're not just trying to pick one or two coins that like 10x or 100x. You want to avoid big losers. So it doesn't matter if you pick a coin that does 100x and then another that does 100x and then another that does 100x, or even if it's the same coin 3 times over, if eventually it drops to zero, right? It doesn't matter how good your gains were along the way if your portfolio goes to zero. So you really want to avoid losers. And in my opinion, when you're trying to pick individual companies or individual currencies that are going to win, you just have so much idiosyncratic risk to that company. For example, if something happens to the CEO or the CTO or whatever, there's just so much risk there. So it's unappealing to me. Number 6, Ripple's monthly sales of XRP are their primary fundraising mechanism, but buyers of XRP get nothing. No equity, no debt. It's 100% speculation. So there's been a lot of talk, is XRP a security or not? In my opinion, it's definitely not a security. I mean, it's definitely not a security, and I also think regulators will hold that same position. So you don't get a share of the company's cash flows. You don't get a share of the company's assets. You're not entitled to voting rights. You're not entitled to dividends. You're not getting coupon payments. You're not being reimbursed for the principal. There's just absolutely no relationship between someone who buys XRP and Ripple as a company. There's no relationship there. There's no ongoing anything. So in my opinion, it's definitely not a security. However, as an investor, I kind of want a security. I want a security. I want a share of the company's profits, right? Like if I'm buying a stock in Walmart and Walmart sells a lot of stuff, great. I want to see some of that in the form of a dividend, right? Or if it's a company or a municipality or whatever who's giving me a bond, I want the coupon payment plus my principal back. right? That's investing. So I don't want to just buy a token that's issued by a company but has no bearing whatsoever into how well the company does. To me, that's bizarre. I want a security. I want a stock or a bond. If I believe in Ripple and its products and its ability to generate a solution for its customers, which are banks, and generate cash flow from those solutions, I want to see the cash flow. So why would I just buy a token that's completely unrelated to the success of the company? It's kind of bizarre. So that's it's just purely speculation, like going up or down in price. And again, as I mentioned the previous reason, the price isn't necessarily related to the solution that it provides. Number 5, to properly use xRapid, banks do not need to hold XRP for an extended period of time, and neither do individuals. So banks don't need to sit on a big pile of XRP in order to use it, right? They can just use it for a few seconds at a time, start with fiat, use XRP in the middle, and then end with fiat on the other side. And this is attractive to banks because they don't want to worry about the exchange rate risk or the price risk of XRP. But if banks aren't going to be incentivized to stack massive stacks of XRP, then where's the demand for it coming from? I mean, if banks aren't going to hodl a whole bunch of XRP, then why would I? Right? Banks are the customers, the users. And if they're not going to stock up on the product, then why would I? I just don't get that. I don't know. So that's not that appealing to me. And I tried to find a quote so I could include a screenshot here. I looked for hours. There was a quote several years ago, it must have been 3 or 4 years ago, of Brad Garlinghouse answering a question, which was, what is the ultimate reason that a retail investor would hold XRP? And he basically said there isn't one. So again, I don't have the screenshot. I tried to find that article, couldn't do it. But even that aside, I just don't see the appeal to stacking large amounts when a bank, the user won't stack large amounts. So maybe it's just me, but that's a reason I don't want to invest in XRP. Number 4, there's no connection between the adoption of XRP tech and the price of XRP. No connection whatsoever. So in the last couple years, Ripple has partnered with, I don't even know, I lose track, dozens and dozens and dozens of banks, money transmitters, and so forth. And they keep announcing them all the time, and a lot of people in the XRP space get super excited. Another one, another step, XRP the standard, one world, this, interoperability, it's happening. Okay, fine. Totally fine. Like, I'm not going to question if the partnerships exist. I mean, I think they do. However, there seems to be no connection with all that growth, all those partnerships, all this strategic expansion, and the price of XRP. So like the price of XRP in the last couple of years, while all these partnerships have been announced, has been flat or actually down a little, something from like 40 cents or 30 cents down to like 20 cents where we're at now. Pretty steady, right? In the last 2 years or so, I think the last big pump was end of 2017, January of 2018, the same time every coin pumped. So I just don't see the connection between the adoption and the partnerships and all that with the actual price of the token. So it's unappealing to me. It's unappealing to me. If there was a stronger relationship, then maybe it would be appealing. All right, number 3. Liberating capital from nostro and vostro accounts will hurt consumers immensely through hyperinflation. This is really important. And from the bank's perspective, it's a great thing that they don't have to park enormous piles of fiat cash in each other's banks all over the world so that they can do all these remittances. From a consumer's perspective, this is horrendous. This is absolutely horrible because when all that capital is liberated, it's going to go into different asset classes. And it could be financial assets like stocks, bonds, and real estate, or it could be other types of assets like food, water, clothing, shelter, education, medicine, and so forth. And this conveys a huge advantage to whoever's starting with the cash, but it's an enormous disadvantage to whoever touches it last, right? And whoever's buying those assets last, whoever's last to the game, is overpaying for all the things that they want to buy. So, hyperinflation is what destroys currencies, and it's what creates such tremendous wealth inequality. So it's hard for me to get excited about, banks don't have to park so much money. I mean, the problem with our financial system is not a lack of liquidity, right? For individuals. The problem for individuals is too much liquidity. Individuals would be far better off if there wasn't so much currency sloshing around the system. But from banks, it's the opposite. So banks should be excited about freeing up all their currency, but that's not a good thing for consumers. And since I'm a consumer, it's hard for me to get excited about that. All right, number 2, Ripple and XRP are pretending to solve the problems with our financial system, but are actually exacerbating the big problems while solving small ones. I mean, this is huge. They're pretending to solve the major issues of our financial system. So what I just said a minute ago is, they're working with banks. They're solving the problems that banks have, and they're honest about that. They say they work with banks, they partner with banks, they're designed for banks, no problem. So that part is very honest. The problem I have is when you get a bunch of retail investors that get all gung-ho about all these things, new partnerships, expansions, new products, XRP to the moon, interoperability, the standard, all of this enthusiasm from retail investors, and even going beyond to some of the problems like helping the unbanked that XRP is going to help. When all of that happens, it's not happening in secret, right? Brad Garlinghouse is very aware of it. All the people at Ripple are very aware that that's the ethos in the XRP community among the retail investors, and they let it slide. They encourage it. And to me, this is a huge misrepresentation. It's extremely misleading, and they're essentially knowingly pretending to solve problems for individuals. They're not solving problems for individuals. They're not. Unfortunately, we live in a world that is currently adversarial between bankers and the customers of banks, right? Individuals. Under a sound money system, it would not be adversarial. Under our current system, where nobody uses sound money anywhere in the world, it is adversarial. It's a win-lose situation. And so, like it or not, you're either on the side of the banks or you're against them. And I don't like the fact that Ripple and Brad Garlinghouse encourage such wrong-headed beliefs, and that they don't take the time to squash them. So I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of the deception and the misleadingness. Now, again, they admit they're helping banks, no problem, but they also pretend to be helping individuals, and it's just not possible. Not possible under our current system. It's set up as a win-lose structure, so you can't be helping both at the same time. So I don't like that. And number 1, my biggest reason, and the reason that trumps all the others, so even if the other 9 didn't exist, this one would be sufficient. I do not want the world's existing financial institutions to increase their capabilities or their control. And it's directly a result of what I just said. Unfortunately, it is an adversarial relationship because the current financial system can only generate wealth by stealing it from everyone else. It's the only way they generate wealth. And I can explain that more in depth in another video. I'm sure if you guys have ever spent any time looking into it, you know what I'm talking about. Basically, when you can print currency out of thin air, ad infinitum, right, to infinity without limit, you're stealing. You're stealing. That's basically what you're doing. You're stealing. And you can use all the fancy words you want. You can pretend you're helping. You can say we're providing liquidity, we're, quantitative easing, stimulus, right, da-da-da. It's just stealing. Every single thing that banks can do is a form of stealing. It's just a question of how much are they stealing, who are they stealing it from, how quickly are they stealing it. And the reason that cryptocurrencies were invented, Bitcoin, was to give the world sound money, right? I mean, we have gold. It has its drawbacks, obviously, like anything else. But that's why Bitcoin was invented, right? Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks, right? That was in the Genesis block of Bitcoin. And so the problem with our monetary system, right, is not that remittances are slow and expensive. That's not the problem we have, right? The reason that we had an Occupy Wall Street movement, right? The reason that we have people against the 1%, the reason we have historically high wealth inequality within countries and across countries around the world, the reason we have social problems, the reason we have so much social unrest, the reason we have high incarceration rates, the reason we have high divorce rates, the reason we have all of these problems is not that remittances are inefficient. That's not the problem. And it doesn't need a solution. If you actually want to help people, if you want to solve social, political, and economic problems for individuals all over the world, regardless of the country, their race, the language they speak, their religion, if you want to solve all those things indiscriminately, you have to give the world sound money and get out of their way. That's it. And so if you're gonna give me an option of, hey, do you want to invest in this thing that was created by a company that is trying to help the banks increase their stranglehold on all the people of the world? My answer is no. I do not want to participate in that. If you do, that's fine. Honestly, no judgment. It's totally fine. You do what you want. Everyone's got to make their own decisions. Maybe you're just trying to like 10x and then you'll get out, and that's fine, and whatever. I'm not here to judge you. I don't care if you want to hodl it forever, if you're just trying to profit on the ups and downs. I don't care, right? This video is about me. This is why I don't invest in XRP, and my number one reason is a moral reason. If you're going to tell me that, there's slave traders around the world that invented this new technology that allows them to move their slaves from one plantation to another very cheaply and efficiently, I'm not going to invest in that technology because I don't want to support the slavery. And I actually think that is a perfect analogy with XRP. The banks are absolutely slave masters. And if you're not a bank, then you're a slave, for sure. Doesn't matter where in the world you live. If you use a government fiat currency, you are a slave. Now, some people, just like real slavery, some people weren't really whipped that badly. It wasn't that bad, right? They didn't have their freedoms, but at least they weren't physically mistreated or emotionally mistreated or whatever, and they were with their families or whatever, right? There's a spectrum of how bad the conditions were, and some, obviously, it was really bad. That's just like nowadays. There are first world countries, there are third world countries, but we're all slaves. And I don't want to invest or participate in a system that allows the masters to increase their stranglehold. So I object to XRP on moral grounds. Even if I could make 100x, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. So that is my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you want me to go over anything else or perhaps clarify things, let me know. I'm happy to do that too. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.